Pump up the jams on a suddenly not so casual free Friday. It is CFB Week 2 Knowledge for College, Friday, September 8th, 2023. The Shark and the Gun coming right back at you on a suddenly not so casual one at that. Week 2, overreactions, underreactions, a lot going on. I'm hyped. Guns picks. What's going on tonight, my brother?
Yeah, we just had ourselves a little bit of a snap, at least on my side, but the Shark absolutely killed it. Went 5-1 last week. We gave you these plays absolutely for free. So please like and subscribe to the channel as you're watching us. I went 5-6. We're 6-8. I'm 6-8 for the year. The Shark, he is 6-2 for the year. So he's absolutely killing it. We're gonna get the momentum, we're gonna get the stats, the data, and we are gonna have ourselves an electric week 2. So let's get to it. I'm ready to go.
Speaking of overreactions and underreactions, it doesn't get any better than the most hyped, talked about team in America. Who would have thought, going back to last year, we'd be sitting here going into Saturday morning talking about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain Time, Frederick Folsom Field, named for a legendary coach in 1924. 100 years later, Deion vying for that same position in one of the most public darling spots in the history of early season football. Guns picks. You disagree. I'm hyped to talk about it. Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road in Boulder, 12 o'clock noon, Fox Sports, first official of the broadcast.
I have never, in my years of capping college football, seen an overreaction to one game, folks, and have a team shoot up into the top 25 faster than I saw it with Colorado and Deion Sanders' team. I want to break this down thoroughly with you guys, but I'll do it in the quickest of manners. Now let's talk Nebraska. Nebraska, where are they coming from? A heartbreaking loss to Minnesota, 13-10, despite winning the net yardage battle. So they had a great defense, and they have a good run game, plus 45 net yards for the game. -3 turnover ratio basically decided it here, folks. 3 INTs from Jeff Sims. There's no bueno. Can't have that in this game versus Colorado. Now, Colorado coming off a major, quote unquote, major upset of TCU. 45-42 is 21-point dogs. Plus 24 net yard average for that game. They put up 565 yards of total offense. Now, while Colorado has a strong offense, they were up against a TCU team that had lost all their talent from last year. This isn't the team that went to the national championship anymore. Nah. This is a different team here. Now, Colorado took advantage of that passing game, 510 yards and 4 touchdowns here. Colorado's defense. This is a key point on this one. Terrible. Awful. I've never seen a top 25 team look this bad as far as the defense is concerned. They got gashed in the run game. 262 yards, 7.1 yards per carry given up to TCU. Their pass defense was even as bad. 279 yards given up, and they recorded 0 sacks. They didn't put pressure on the quarterback, Chandler Morris, at all in that game. Now you got to look at Nebraska's offense. While they're not good in the passing game, what do they like to do? They can run the ball. It's a Big Ten football team. They were very productive last week, 4.9 yards per carry to a good Minnesota Gophers defense, put up 181 yards rushing, primarily with the dual threat quarterback, Jeff Sims. Now, Colorado will be facing a better defense this week by far. And you got game film on them. So I think, and a better coach for that matter in Matt Rule, in Rule. They held Minnesota to 54.5 pass completion rate last week, sacked their quarterback 3 times. The Nebraska DC has come from Syracuse. His squad specialized pressuring the quarterback and getting sacks. That is his MO. You can check yourself. That's the stats for this one. I think Shador Sanders is going to get rushed in this one with that bad offensive line for Colorado. Also, this is the first time Colorado has been ranked since 2018, and I'm not counting the COVID year. They only played 6 games. You can't count that one. Throw that out. They finished 5-7 in that year. And also, you got to look at historically, this is just a letdown spot. Biggest of wins on the road. Now you got to go came home. Granted, it is their home opener. They're going to fall apart in this one. Plus, you have Travis Hunter. I know he goes both sides on this one. 129 snaps last week. There's no way he can keep that tempo up for the whole year. Maybe Dion knows more than I do, but I've never seen a player play that many snaps consistently all the way through the entire season. So to sum up for you, Colorado coming off a loss, coming off an upset win on the road, first home game as a ranked team for the first time since 2018, a high-paced offense that is vulnerable to the pass rush, weak defense, especially against the run, going up against a Nebraska team that lost in the final seconds in the previous week, gets more rest and prep time because they played on Thursday, so they are ready to go on this one. Has a defense that can put pressure on the quarterback and run the ball efficiently. Plus the fact that the media, God and everybody, is gonna be on Colorado, and when I see that, I salivate. It's like just let me eat it up, baby. Got the spoon. I'm Ezekiel Elliott. I'm gonna eat this up. Give me Nebraska, and this line's dropping, so you need to get on it now. Plus 3.5, and I'm gonna Salt Bay that baby plus 140 on the money line, baby. That's 3 units, 2 on the spread, 1 on the money line. Let's go.
A lot to discuss in this game, and I do want to make a comment on the market splits are incredibly heavy here, and I do think one thing that is really important here is the functionality of a team as a significant underdog last week versus a team in TCU that it was absolutely coming down off a peak last year where they won a ton of one possession games and got to the national championship game. So theoretically, that was where TCU is cliff diving and Colorado's coming up. I think this is actually the polar opposite. I think this is where Nebraska is coming up and Colorado is coming down off a gigantic high. And of course, now ranked number 22 in the country. Nobody could have seen that coming. The gun on it at high noon at plus 3.5, plus 3. My first official of the broadcast, one that I did not post early week, was waiting for a line. The line has pretty much hovered right around it. We're taking Iowa on the road in the in-state rivalry game at Iowa State, minus 3.5, 1 unit official. And a lot going on in this game. If you go back to last year, just an absolute disaster of a football game played in Iowa City. 10-7, 3 turnovers on both sides of the game. And I think you're really starting to see a situational trend develop here between these teams, of course, not in the same conference, but 2 teams that play each other every single year in this rivalry. Iowa plays better on the road. They're 2-3 in the last 5 at home ATS in this matchup. They are 5-0 in their last 5 ball games played in Ames. And I think if you really look at what's going on here off of week 1, you're finding a nice buy low on Iowa. Last week, they came out and did not cover the spread against Utah State. Out of conference, uninspiring. Utah State, historically a bit scrappy as a significant underdog in early weeks. And you find that game where Iowa really could have throttled Utah State. Transfer quarterback Cade McNamara from Michigan, explosive quarterback, transferred over here for a reason, to be able to really take hold of a ship that he lost when J.J. McCarthy was inserted in the lineup last year, early season at Michigan. But they absolutely dominated that game. Iowa State on the other side, 30-9 cover against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa gave them that game. Pick 6 on the first possession, really poor special teams. I think the ATS reversal here leans towards Iowa. And final point of the game, as I mentioned, major quarterback upgrade for Iowa. Last year, we're playing 4th or 5th year quarterback Petras. I know that's not how you pronounce his name, but I'm going to ride with it. I'm feeling some Carlos Alcaraz tennis here on this Friday, but it is Cade McNamara. And really interesting stuff here. Iowa State quarterback Hunter Deckers not on the lineup right now due to sports betting. The intrigue and irony of that on a sports betting show that we are fading a team whose player has been removed from the roster for underage sports gambling in Iowa. Insert Rocco Becht, son of NFL tight end from the Jets and other teams, Anthony Becht. Huge upgrade at QB for Iowa. Huge downgrade for Iowa State. Final point in the game, I was listening to Rocco Becht talk to the media. Doesn't seem like the sharpest tool in the shed. And that is truly a very important thing with quarterbacking. You really have to have the mental game to grasp playbooks, scheme, and adjustability. I don't see it with this kid. It's nothing personal. It's purely an evaluation. I think there's a huge advantage here. And the final point is Iowa last year at home -3.5. This should come towards Iowa State. Comes up at open -4. That is line functionality. 1 unit official. Iowa State -3.5. Guns pick. Second play, 3:30 p.m. UTSA at home catching Texas State here off of really just a historical high at Baylor going back to week 1. An outright win, 42-31. And UTSA coming in here off of a game where truly they probably should have won the game. Frank Harris, 3 inopportunistic turnovers, giving a game to Houston. A reversal of fortunes on both sides of this game, I believe. Official play from the gun, number 2 of the broadcast, UTSA -12.5.
Yeah, I mean, they're also adjusted to a new OC on that one. So, I mean, there's just too much talent here in this perfect letdown spot here for Texas State. But I'll make sure I give shout outs to the chat. John Reed, Benjamin Rush, Football Guy 97, Ross Pitts getting into the chat, giving his opinions. I know you're on the opposite side of me. You go take Colorado. That's fine with me. All debates, we'll take them. Now, Jared Smith, love him too. Love all you guys. Get into the chat. Tell me what you're on this week, all right? Let's talk about this Texas State game. Texas State coming off an upset win. They beat Baylor, 27-point dogs. They lost the net yardage battle in that game, -83 net yards, but still won the game. And of course, Baylor losing their quarterback in the process mid-game. The transitions there, very tough to come back and persevere in those spots. Now you got UTSA. They're coming off a heartbreaking loss. Where Shark alluded to Houston, 17-14, winning the net yardage battle by 83 yards. So one's got -83 net yards, one's got +83 net yards. But the difference in the game, -3 in turnover ratio, that decided it all. And they only lost by 3. So not a bad situation in that spot. Now you got to look at Texas State. Weakness is their defense. They gave up 524 yards to Baylor, 416 in the passing game. They make sense considering that makes sense to me because they're a brand new defense. Four returning starters on the defensive side and a new DC. So that's going to be an advantage here for UTSA in the spot. UTSA defense held strong in week 1 as well. Only giving up 334 yards to Houston, 2.7 yards per carry on the ground, and beat them in the yardage battle. Like I said before, the game was the turnovers. So UTSA also, you got to look at the history versus Texas State. 4-0 and 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread all time versus Texas State. I just think this is a perfect rebound spot for UTSA after a close loss to Houston, and then you just got the letdown spot on the road to Texas State after the biggest of wins for the program. I'm going to be fading Texas State here and taking UTSA, our darlings, -12.5, 2 unit special.
Love that situational buy low. My second play of the broadcast, taking Georgia Southern within the Sun Belt out of conference against University of Alabama, Birmingham, -6.5, 1 unit official. And really a lot going on in this game. Guns and I were just talking about this off the air. This is a great spot to buy Georgia Southern. Last year, Georgia Southern played a road game at UAB. It was a huge, huge fade spot for them. They had beaten Nebraska in the previous week on the road. It was Scott Frost's last game. Georgia Southern was the team that put the nail in the coffin for him. But, crucial point, they stayed on the road back-to-back weeks off that huge win, and they went to UAB and really just got hammered early and often. Those of you guys who watched the show last year, and we appreciate you guys building with us, the Shark and the Gun here, Campaign 3, we did play UAB first half and game last year for that precise reason. This is the polar opposite this year. This is a Georgia Southern team that comes into tomorrow's game 5-2 last 7 ATS at home. And I think more importantly, 3-0 in their last 3 as a home non-conference favorite. And truly going back to last year, a lot of the caps this week for me are very situational to roster turnover. Some of it's quarterback flip-flops, some of it's transfer portal. But with UAB, this is the NFL draft. And this is Dwayne McBride, who was their absolute lifeline as running back for the past few seasons. And in that game last year, UAB did win the game 35-21 and cover the spread. Dwayne McBride had 28 carries for 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. He took over the game. He now plays for the Minnesota Vikings. So this is where the environment is expected to reverse, continuing this idea of roster turnover for the better. We have a new quarterback this year for Georgia Southern. We get Tulsa's ex-quarterback Davis Brin replacing Kyle Van Treese. And UAB did lose Dylan Hopkins to the University of New Mexico. Dylan Hopkins was 15-7 straight up as a starter with UAB, replaced by his backup last year, Jacob Zeno. This is an all boxes checked spot. The line last year, UAB minus 13.5. This flips 20 points to Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern should win this game with some margin. On it for 1 unit official at minus 6.5. Taking a breath. Next play, Guns picks. New Mexico State on the road at Liberty. New Mexico State did hammer Liberty last year, late season, 49-14. I think to the surprise of most. And you are buying the continued story here on the road on Saturday, September 9th. New Mexico State plus 10.5, an official.
Yeah, I mean, with this New Mexico State team, it's all about the line correlation in here from game A to game B. But I want to make sure I answer some of these questions that are coming into the chat right now. Matt Kappa says that line is moving up on the UTSA game, 13.5, 14. Listen, if I wouldn't go past 14 on this one just to be safe. I do think this is a two score or more type of situation. I did get it 12.5 earlier a couple days ago. But yeah, the 13.5, 14, you're fine there. I'm seeing 13.5s across the board. So just shop around. Make sure you try to find something under the 14. And of course, we'll answer the Notre Dame question in a second here. Someone asked that in the chat. But let's talk about this New Mexico State Liberty game. Now, New Mexico State rebounded off that UMass loss in week 0. Easy win over Western Illinois, FCS style, 58-21. Liberty coming off a home win themselves, beating Bowling Green, the lackluster Bowling Green, 34-24 as 7.5 point favorites, plus 61 net yards for the game, plus 4 turnover ratio to get the W. But looking at Liberty this season, it's a full rebuild. It's a full reset button. Okay. Hugh Freeze leaves. He goes over to Auburn. And then they only get 8 starters back. They lose their top receiver, running back, and quarterback from last season, which effect was shown. The best player on that team was Day Hunter. They don't even get him back. He didn't play the last 4 games of the season. If you want to see a sample size without him in the lineup, look at the last 4 games of the 2022 season. They went 0-4 straight up and were favored by double digits in 3 of those 4. If you remember last year, I took Connecticut at plus 13.5 in one of those games to get to a bowl, and they won the game outright. All right. Now you got to look at the offense for New Mexico State. Absolutely strong this year. They can run the ball. They can pass the ball. They have a dual threat quarterback in Diego Pavia, where as a team, they averaged 554 yards per game so far this season. And they got 9 starters back on the offense. So improvement is expected. Now, Liberty struggled stopping the run versus Bowling Green. That is going to be a key point in this one. They gave up 6.2 yards per carry to Bowling Green. New Mexico State, guess what they average? Over 6 yards per carry, 6.1 yards per carry on the ground in the last 2 games. New Mexico State beat Liberty last year as a 24.5 point dogs, 49-14. Absolutely brutalized this team. Now you see the line sitting a lot closer than that, my friends. 10.5, less than 1 year ago, less than 1 year later. So you're seeing the line correlation here. I think this is a perfect New Mexico State spot. Now you got to look at Liberty 0-5 against the spread as a home favorite, where New Mexico State is 8-3 against the spread versus non-P5 opponents. Liberty is going through a full reset mode. Like I said, they lost a lot of talent. They lost their head coach. They lost their entire coaching staff. New Mexico State looking like a different team under Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill, man. What a great football coach name. That's all I can say about that. I think they get it done here with the improved unit. Give me New Mexico State plus 10.5. And I see that line dropping. So get on it now before it hits the 7. New Mexico State plus 10.5 to unit special.
My next play, we're going totals, couple totals on this broadcast. We're going to Miami, Florida International, home game against the University of North Texas. Took this early week. That's why you do turn notifications on. I know people got this early week on Twitter, now known as X, of course. Under 53.5, that is 52 or 51.5 now, for good reason. I think this is where I really hone into games that were played last year. So we do have a specific matchup analysis. Go back to last November. It was November 5th, 2022. North Texas did host Florida International. And this is really a snapshot to, I believe, a Florida International team that is playing better defense this year. Last year in that game, this was an absolute egregious outlier in the first half. The final score of the game was 52-14. The score in the first half was 45-14. There were 59 points in the first half and only 7 in the second half to slightly go over the line last year at 63.5. So now you see a 63.5 last year go over barely at 66, and books move this down significantly at open to 53.5. And what they're telling you is that 59-point first half was just a complete, utter outlier, and it's going to be a much slower game. And if you really look at FIU this year, they have played 2 games that have been very, very slow down. And I think, again, maybe expectedly, particularly the opener at Louisiana Tech. I didn't play that game. I actually said on this broadcast, I thought that would be an over. It was not. It was a low-scoring game, 22-17, a significant under. And then their only home game this year, 14-12 versus Maine. So this team is playing a slow-down game. The offense is not great, but I think the defense has improved. And one final point on the game. Obviously, last week we had talked about University of North Texas at home against Cal. They gave up 58 points in that game, did lose the game 58-21. That is an egregious over. And I think it is symptomatic to Cal having a backup quarterback come in that game and really show out. UNT last year on the road averaged 65.6 points per game combined. This is far below that. It's moving against last year's average. All boxes checked. 1 unit official, UNT FIU under 53.5, 52 now. Guns picks, next play. Rice at home, +10, revenge game against Houston. Houston is just getting away with murder over and over and over. They did it last year. They outscored Memphis in the fourth quarter by about 20 points to backdoor them. Last week against Frank Harris, they won the game being outgained by close to 100 yards. There's certain teams in sports, certain teams in college football that truly are way above what they're expected to be and get lucky. Houston is one of those teams, Guns, and you're on Rice at +10.
Yeah, I just love the spot here, and that line's short for a reason, especially what they did last week. Rice didn't look good at all, so I think this is going to be a get-right spot for Rice. And then you got Houston coming off a big win themselves. But let's talk about Rice here. They're coming off a 27-point loss to Texas. Texas, they're going to be playing Alabama this week, and they took the whooping ahead of time, 37-10, 35-point road dogs in that situation, minus 282 net yards for the game. Only putting up 176 yards of total offense, okay? Houston, on the other hand, coming off a close win and cover. UTSA, we were on UTSA, and we took the bag on that one. Lost the net yardage battle, however. Minus 83, like I said before, +3 turnover ratios. I said this before. Shark and I were talking last night. So hard to cap turnovers. You don't know where they're coming, but when they do, they mess up a spread. Rice, while not the greatest road team at home, different story. And they're playing at home here, okay? Last season, they had a 0-point differential at home, +37 net yards against their opponents. In comparison to that on the road, minus 16-point differential on the road, minus 62 net yards. Night and day for this Rice team here. They also have a decent quarterback, decent to say the least, okay? But decent. JT Daniels playing for his 14th team at this point. He is a road warrior, road traveler, going from team to team like a backup quarterback in the NFL. And he's got a lot of talented wide receivers. Versus Texas, you can't look at that game at all. They historically underperform in season openers. Okay, you look at the history yourself. Rice kind of gets right in those next weeks, but after that first game, that first game is usually stinky for Rice. Okay, Rice lost 7 straight to Houston, but Rice has covered 2 out of the last 3. So Rice is starting to get that momentum up to swing. And last year the line was plus 17, and they covered. This year they're plus 9 at home. Difference between year 1, year 2. Perfect correlation here playing at home. And I believe Rice will rebound in week 2 after a terrible performance for Texas. I'm sure they're getting that beat to their skulls from the coach. Houston, to me, is suspect in this spot after a misleading win versus UTSA. And the line tells a story here, folks, and we always love the storylines. And I see this thing drop into 8, 8.5, 9s out there I'm seeing. So get on it now. I don't think it's going to stick where it is today. I think it's just going to drop. I did get it at plus 10. It's a 2-unit special for me, but make sure you grab it before it gets too low. Get to that 7 point. It could be a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree there. And I also think there's some access to the under. If you look last year, that game did finish slightly over. There were 800 plus yards in the game. Books are moving it against. I'm actually looking at that with significance. I might post that after the show. Next play, moving forward to another out-of-conference game, but importantly, one that was played last year. Memphis Tigers on the road in Jonesboro, Arkansas, against Arkansas State. Really nice dynamics developing in this matchup as well. Memphis is a road team. Oddly, they are 3-5 last 8 home ATS, including a non-cover last week out of conference in their opener against Bethune-Cookman. However, in that sample, they are 4-1 last 5 road ATS. And if you go back to last year, they did play a home game against Arkansas State. They did not cover by 1 point, 44-32 on a minus 13. We are getting line functionality here. Minus 13 home non-cover should come towards Arkansas State around minus 10, minus 9 Memphis. This comes all the way up to Memphis minus 18. And it is getting steamed up. Got this at 20.5. It is minus 21 now. And this is for good reason. Arkansas State books have a handle over this bottom feeder at home. In the last 6 home games, they are 3-0 straight up as a favorite at home, 2-1 ATS, significant favorite margin win against SWAC, Grambling State 58-3, and a hammer win against University of Louisiana Monroe. Tight win against UMass. Key point, ultra FBS bottom feeders there as a favorite. Go to the underdog side of this matchup. They are 0-3 in their last 3 home games, ATS as an underdog, all by margin and all by heavy lines. JMU last year was laying minus 11.5, did get them 42-20. University of South Alabama was laying minus 9, got them 31-3. And Troy was laying minus 13.5, the heaviest of the group, 48-19 victory. Arkansas State got absolutely hammered in the opener, 73-0 at Oklahoma. This is really where Memphis will perform on this number. Memphis is supposed to win this game by minimum 26.5 points. I think margin is coming with imminence. We are on this for 1 unit official at minus 20.5. Next play, Guns Picks. Big time college football down in Texas. This is going to be really an interesting environment for Oregon, who comes in here pedestrian against the Big 12 in the last 5 to 10 years. Texas Tech took a very uncharacteristic loss at Wyoming last week. Weird game, out of conference. There was a major weather delay in the game. The game didn't end until after midnight. Nonetheless, you like Texas Tech to come back here and cover and maybe win outright at plus 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect get-right spot here, playing their home opener here. Coach E in the chat, though. How do you feel about Notre Dame every week I feel sick to my stomach watching them. I'm a very nervous guy. I can't bet on them. I just kind of pace around and yell at my TV. That's all I'm going to do with that game. First tough test for them this season after two cream puffs. But let's talk about this Oregon Texas Tech game. Oregon coming off a dominating win versus an FCS opponent, 81-7. No mercy, sweep the leg situation. 729 yards of total offense, plus 529 net yards. Now, Texas coming off an upset road loss to Wyoming. Tough game for them, and a long game for that matter. At 17 point, they lost 35-33 as 14-point favorites. Despite winning the yardage battle, plus 111 net yards for that game, and they still lost. Plus one turnover ratio too. Classic look ahead spot, in my opinion. That's probably what happened in this situation. Plus, they had a significant weather delay, if you remember. Lightning had come through there, so they had to, I think it was like a 2 or 3 hour delay before they even started the game. And when you're sitting in that locker room as a road team with that rust, things can go awry, playing even a mediocre team like Wyoming. Texas Tech's offense going in strong. 11 starters back for this team. They put up 431 yards of total offense last week versus Wyoming, which was a difficult place to play with the altitudes and everything. Tyler Show on this one, 338 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 INT. So, I mean, they did the right things. The offense looked good. They just couldn't finish the game off and just got caught in a bad spot versus Wyoming. I know Oregon brought back 16 starters, and on the defensive side, though, they lose 3 out of their top 4 tacklers from last season. They also struggled putting pressure on the quarterback. 3.9 sack rate last season, 0 sacks versus Portland State. Even in that FCS team, you couldn't get to the quarterback and put pressure on him, knock him over, get 1 sack. I mean, come on. Last season, Oregon on the road played their opponents really close. Okay, they had a plus 6 point differential, plus 99 net yards, plus 9 versus at home where they had a plus 19 point differential, plus 143 net yards. So there's a yin and yang there between road versus home splits. This is the teams they played on the road. If you don't trust me on this one, UGA, Washington State, Arizona, Cal, Colorado, Oregon State, and UNC. These aren't world-beating teams here, folks, and they still played to the level of their competition, okay? Now, giving Texas Tech time to throw will hurt Oregon. I mean, Texas offense under second-year OC Zach Kitley. You know where he comes from? Western Kentucky OC. Remember the Bailey Zappi days? Remember the spreads? Remember them just scoring points willy-nilly left and right? This is what that guy brought to the table, and he's bringing it here, second year into the game in this situation. So this is just a perfect spot for Texas Tech. They're coming off that close loss on the road. They dominated the net yards. Very high-profile team off a big win at home and their first road game of the season here for the Oregon Ducks. So I'm wearing the hat. It's not a buy hat. It's a fade hat. Let's try to switch it up on you guys today, but I'm going to be taking Texas Tech plus 6.5, 2 units.
Final play of the broadcast. Guns has a side. I have a total. We're going out west. So shout out to our guys out west. Benjamin Rash, top dogs in the building. And we're taking a total Wisconsin in Pullman at Wazoo over 55. Again, posted on Monday for good reason at 58.5 now. And I think you're going to see over 65 points in this game. So I'm not worried about the final line for you guys right now. But if you go back to last year as a real starting point to this cap, it was September 10th, 2022. Wazoo did play a road game at Wisconsin. The game was an egregiously low-scoring Leatherhead dud, 17-14. Crucial point, however, does lie in the line yet again. Books did have that game graded to an under, 46.5. Off of the dud, they open this up a touchdown stronger than the line, where the game finished 15 points lower than the line. So not only are they telling you that it's the same average, they're telling you it's a higher average. and it's an excellent, excellent spot. The game, to a certain degree, was a bit of an anomaly. There were 654 total yards. There were 6 combined turnovers. Wisconsin was more of the anomaly. Significant home favorite, outright loss at minus 17.5. They dominated the game from a possession standpoint. 38 minutes of possession to 22 minutes and only put up 14 points. A lot of it was because Graham Mertz, who is now, of course, with the University of Florida, really just sustainably underachieved with the Badgers. Insert Tanner Mordecai coming over here from SMU. You're seeing a completely different story, and you're seeing it immediately in week 1. They only played one game with Tanner. It wasn't over. 38-17, over 52.5 against Buffalo. And, of course, Wazoo. We did buy an over last week on the road at Colorado State. Same idea. Points will be abundant in this game. On this, as I mentioned, on Monday, over 55. Current line, 58. Guns picks aside, the Badgers on the road at -6. Official.
Perfect revenge spot for the Badgers. Now they have maybe some resemblance. I don't know what the word I'm trying to come up with here. Resemblance of an offense here with Tanner Mordecai as the quarterback. Coming off that win last week, 38-17. So they did put up 38 points versus Buffalo at home, winning the net yards battle, plus 187, -2 turnover ratio. A little bit rusty there in week 1. So hopefully they get the kinks out here against Washington State. Now, Washington State is coming off a huge win themselves. I know at least I took Colorado State last week, and that kerplunked big time here. On the road, 50-24 win, and they dominated the net yards battle, plus 199. Now, the Wisconsin's strength in this one is the run game. Okay, they have one of the best 1-2 punches in college football with Ches Malusi and Braylon Allen, my guy. I love that kid so much. He is a baller. They put up the brunt of the yards of the offense last week, 314 yards on the ground against Buffalo. Now Wisconsin is getting acclimated here to a new OC. They bring over the former offensive coordinator here from UNC. So they're implementing more of a pass-oriented offense. Now this Wisconsin team is used to run blocking. They're used to just, hammering the ball and playing good defense. They're trying to get oriented here. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think they get right here with Tanner Mordecai. Because even in the win, they're still got growing pains with the offense. But that's okay. I love the defense here for Washington. I'm sorry, Wisconsin. Washington State does bring QB Cam Ward heavy pass last week. He had 9.2 yards per play, 75.5% pass completion rate, 466 yards passing. Washington State is going to face a Wisconsin defense that has just been absolutely dominated year after year, despite their offensive issues. Okay. Wisconsin held Buffalo to 194 yards of total offense last week. And in 2022, they held their opponents to 303 yards of total offense and 204 in the passing game. They also got to the quarterback with an 8.5% sack rate. If Wisconsin is going to get their new offense going, they should do it versus Washington State. Washington State gave up a ton of yards even to Colorado State, and Colorado State's not a world beater as far as the offense is concerned. They gave up 320 yards passing to them, 63.6 pass completion rate, and they only recorded 1 sack, so they didn't even get to the quarterback. You're going to see Tanner Mordecai having a little bit more time than he did last week. Revenge game, I mentioned before. They lost to Washington State at home 17-14, despite holding Washington to 253 yards of total offense last year, plus 148 net yards, and they lost by 3. So you just don't see that a lot. It's kind of the probability of that happening or that occurring. It just doesn't happen. Plus, you have 18 returning starters for Wisconsin that remember that loss. They remember losing to them at home. They want to get right in the spot. Wisconsin has a better defense. Their passing offense is developing, but once they get right, they're going to have a better offense as well. I hope they do it here against this weak, lackluster Washington State team. I think Luke Fickell and the new coaching staff want to get a win on the road in Pullman and set the new program in the right direction. So give me Wisconsin -6, 2 units. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, just the inability to score the football with a different quarterback, new scheme. And if you guys remember North Carolina last year, this team was putting up 40, 50 points a game. This is just a run and gun, open pace offense. This is a great look on both sides of the game. 5 top plays for me. Iowa on the road. We are informed in the chat, thanks to our guy Bruce Johnson. Donald Trump is in Ames, Iowa tomorrow. So therefore, Rocco Becht, son of Anthony Becht, must be so inspired to play. Anecdotal, to say the least, but interesting nonetheless. Minus 3.5, 1 unit. Georgia Southern at home, massive revenge game against UAB, who is really missing integral parts, most specifically Dwayne McBride from last year, who torched Georgia Southern at home. Now in the league, Georgia Southern stand up under in Miami, Florida International, 53.5 against North Texas. Memphis on the road at Sunbelt, bottom feeder, Arkansas State of a home non-cover last year on the road where they perform much, much better. Minus 20.5, minus 21. And the over, as we just discussed, in Pullman, Washington. Martin Stadium, stand up, boys, points on both sides, over 55, 58 now. The Gun High Noon special, Contrarian special, F the World special, whatever you want to call it. Nebraska plus 3.5, 3. UTSA, middle of the afternoon, minus 12.5, fading Texas State off a egregious outlier victory against Big 12 Baylor. Mexico State plus 10.5, Rice plus 10. Texas Tech get right game off a really tough loss in Wyoming last week. And Wisconsin, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. That is, I believe, 11 top plays on the broadcast. It is 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. This is the beginning of an upward movement point in the campaign for guns. I hope to really sustain and grow as we go. This is the beginning of 2023 CFP Knowledge for College Guns Picks. A pleasure as always. Guys in the chat, thanks for commenting. Thanks for interacting. We send you top vibes, love, respect, abundance, and power. Free Friday, September the 8th, 2023. Guns Picks, close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Coach E said it best here. Hit the like! And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you don't yet, and hit the bell so you know every time that we go live. Listen, this is going to be a scheduled Friday show. We'll be here every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you put it on your calendars. Make sure you just hit the notification bell so you know we go live. And actually, I want to get to Pat Kappa. Making me a little nervous, are you, with Wisconsin play? Honoring Mike Leach tomorrow. Listen. From my perspective, he was a Mississippi State coach, not a Washington State coach, all right? I think that was the last stop that he made, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm still on Wisconsin on this one, but make sure you guys check us out. We're going to be back on Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to break off the electric NFL Week 1 slate for you and give you our top plays on this one with the Shark, with the Odds Pal, and myself. So make sure you join us for that. So good luck with all your plays. Let's dominate the board. Let's cash some tickets. And as always, let's go Huskers. Bang!